And if you remember in past videos, this is where my celery was.
Okay, number one, you're going to get the yield of a mild jalapeno. Help you.
Hey YouTube, it's MIgardener here.
Hey YouTube, it's MIgardener, and I'm here with the Christmas special week 1. And before we get started, I have some business to do. I promised that we'd do a Q&A, and so I'm going to answer some of your questions before we get started with the actual contest. So the first question comes from Tribulus82, and he asks, what color CFL bulbs do you use? I've noticed some different colors in the hardware store, like white, warm, natural, and so on. Well, I use just your basic daylight white, and that might not be the best because it's kind of a bluish tone, but it's either that or it's warm, like warm daylight or daylight white. And warm is basically like your reds and oranges, the tone of the light. And if the brighter the light, the better. So if you go with a daylight white, it's going to be bluer, so you don't get that full spectrum. But you wouldn't get that full spectrum with the dim or with the warm daylight. Next question comes from 5 Dogs Playing, and they ask, it's weird. Are you going to start plants for your outdoor garden, or are you going to transfer them to your garden outside in the spring? The ones that I have here are not for the garden outside. If they make it all the way through, maybe, but these are just to keep my mind occupied. In the springtime, when I start planting stuff in here for the outdoors garden, you'll know, trust me, because this place will be packed with plants, and it's going to be like humid windows, and I'm going to actually set up lights underneath my tables to start seedlings as well. So I'm actually going to get 2 more grow lights going. So these are not going outside, but you'll definitely know when they are. Next question comes from the Small Town Gardener, and he asks, how did you build your garden boxes, or what bottom, or the bottom of them, do they have bottoms, or are they open? And if they are open, what do you do about weeds, or did you put a weed barrier down? I did not put a weed barrier down. Also, they are open on the bottom. You don't really need a bottom. You can if you have gopher problems. John from GrowingYourGreens.com, he usually puts down a wire mesh, so the roots can still get down if they are deep-rooting plants like vegetables. But as far as weeds, if you have about a foot of soil like I do, there's no weed in the world that's going to come up through there. I mean, if anything, it's just going to kill it off and turn it into more fertilizer for your plants. But if you feel unsafe about that, then you can always put a weed barrier down, and most of the plants, unless you've got like foot-long carrots like Ray grew one year, or my tomato plants, you're really not going to have to worry much about weed barrier. So just do what you think is best. I don't use it, and it worked just fine without it, but your area might be completely different, and so like I said, it bases on your area and your feelings about it. It really can't hurt. Next question comes from Praxis55712, and he asks, what is the square root of tomato? Why does my dog put his paw in my mouth while I sleep? And if a potato drives from New York at 60 miles per hour and a pepper? I really don't know. I really don't know. You got me, Ray. Next question comes from Earthly Plum, and she asks, have you ever made Indian Pakistani food with the peppers you grow? And what is your best gardening memory? And what are your future gardening plans? Do you plan to add more fruits, etc.? My favorite gardening memory has to be this year, because I started my YouTube channel, and I think I met my goal. I hope to have met my goal at least, of 500 pounds of produce. I also joined the farmer's market, which was really fun. Got into it a little late, but still enjoyed it, and it's still a good experience. I do plan on adding some more fruit trees. Next year I plan on getting, not here, but for my cottage, I plan on getting a couple apple trees and a pear tree, and maybe a peach. But the plants that are here, that are fruit tree-wise, are just the blueberry bushes, and they're going to stay. We're not really going to add any more because we don't really need any more trees around here. And I have never made Pakistani food with the peppers. We have made Chinese food, but those are way too hot for me to eat. The Jamaican habaneros, they're way too hot for me. But moving on, the next question comes from Nan P. Clement. Sorry if I butchered that, but you know who you are. I covered my strawberries and rhubarb with about 4 inches of pine needles for the winter. Do you think this is okay to do? Yeah, it's perfectly fine. The only problem that you may have is sometimes mice will like to burrow in there, and when they feel it's nice and warm, they're going to burrow in, and they might actually nibble on your plants. If you use something more like hay, they tend to not like it because it's not a really good insulator. Pine needles are an excellent insulator because they lay over each other, and so they keep air in between those little layers. But whereas hay, you just have a bunch of loose pieces of hay, and so they're not nearly as good of an insulator. But both will work. Like I said, you just might have that risk of a mouse climbing in there making a den, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. You should be fine with that. And then last question comes from Incredible Isaac 2. If any of you guys haven't heard him, you should definitely check out his channel. He is one of the most energetic kids I know, and he's really excited about gardening. He hopes to have a garden next year, which is cool, and he does a lot of cool indoor gardening and stuff, and he's probably one of the most excited gardeners I know, besides Ray. Ray, you have got me beat excitement-wise far, far beyond me. And he asks, what is the title or author of that gardening book you said in one of your previous videos? I think it was called The Gardening Book, but I'm not sure. And funny story, I could not find that book. It was called The Gardening Book, and the author is Foden. Foden, P-H-A-I-D-E-N, or you can just type in The Gardening Book, and you should be able to find it on Google. It was kind of a bad title for the book, because if you search on Google, Google doesn't know how to translate that from a name of a book to search specifically, so it just searches just every single thing that has to do with gardening and book. But if you capitalize it as in a title in a book, it should be the first or second search down or site down. So now you know what time it is. I'm gonna be right back. Stay tuned, and we'll get this contest started. Oh, oh, oh! Merry Christmas, YouTube! Hopefully you've been good this year, because I got lots of prizes to give out. Also, I've been working on my Santa beard, and it's going along really good. So, I'm going to give out some good prizes. But first, you have to listen to a very bad parody. On the first week of Christmas, MIgardener gave to you. Here's the prizes for this week. Mellow yellow tomato seeds. Cherokee purple tomato seeds. Super bell peppers. I grew them myself. I also did a video on them. Kentucky Wonder pole beans. And dark green zucchini. Ho ho, so there's the prizes, but I guess you want to know what the question is. What seed company did I buy my seeds from to start out this year? I'll give you a hint because it's week 1, but don't ever expect another hint again because it needs to have some challenge. But I'll get you started. This is one of my very first videos I ever put up, and it's on that video somewhere. So, good luck, and remember to stay tuned for next week when I reveal the answer and the winners and give you next week's compounding prize. So ho 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 and Merry Christmas, YouTube.